And my coffee's just poured as well. I think. Good morning, everyone. I think we've got a couple of people this morning joining us from YouTube. I can see Mrs. M already is waiting excitedly for this. Good morning, Mrs. M. And as usual, just going to give a few minutes. You've got the countdown over here to get everybody in before we get going. But good morning from a very wet and windy Cirencester Cotswolds area. I think if you're in the UK, this storm is really giving us a hammering at the moment, and it's horrid out there. I've got the lights on in the kitchen, which is a first. I've also got we're going to start with Halloween, so I've got my little pumpkin lights on as well. I'm quite excited. We're into October. If you are just joining for the first time, hi, my name is Lou. I'm the host, I guess, writer of the blog Crumbs and Corkscrews. We're live this morning on the Facebook page, also in the Facebook group, which is our little baking community, and also live over on YouTube. So hello everyone out there, and welcome. We're just gonna give, as you can see, the countdown over here, just a few minutes to get everybody in, but do let me know where you are in the world. I know we have people from all over joining, people from the States, people from New Zealand, all sorts. So drop wherever you are, whichever group you're in, or where you're watching it live, or if you're watching a replay, drop a comment in the comments box below and let me know where in the world you are, and hopefully it's better than it is out there this morning. Good morning, Amita and family. Hope everybody's really well. Wow, we've got quite a few of you joining today. You're really excited then for these little gingerbread, Halloween gingerbread men that we're going to make today. So we'll just give it a minute more. So grab your coffee. I'm not going to get a chance to drink much of this because I'm going to be talking a lot. Grab your coffee, put your feet up, and hopefully, Mrs. M says it is sunny in Buckinghamshire. Lovely. Here is utterly, it's just not particularly pleasant out there this morning. Oh, I can't watch for long today, but she'll catch up later. It's lovely for you to join. You know, this is where we are. Come and join us. You can watch on the replay as well. And it is sort of it's definitely October weather. I mean, how did that happen? We went into lockdown here in March. We've still got lots of stuff going on with all sorts all over the country. And I started these lives right at the beginning of lockdown. We went through the summer, we had a little bit of a break, and now we're back for autumn again. And it just feels utterly crazy. So, it's quite exciting, but 10 seconds to go. If you're coming, come and join us, and then we'll get ready. I shall just pop the hair back, and I'm going to tell you all about these little guys that we're going to be making. So let's go. So, welcome, good morning. We are doing Halloween gingerbread men today. Now, these guys that you can see down here, they have been on the blog for, I think, 2012, if not longer. So these guys are old, but they are a firm favourite with everybody that comes to the blog and all over, and they're just a great simple bake for kids, for adults. The gingerbread can be used any time of the year as well. So you don't have to just make these for Halloween. You can use the gingerbread recipe for Christmas. We use it for gingerbread reindeer that are also on the blog. And you can use it. It's not a gingerbread house one because that needs to be a lot firmer. But what you're going to get with this is a nice, soft gingerbread. It's not one of them breaks your teeth gingerbread. and it's got a nice warming spice in it. So it's great for kids. It's not one that they're going to just get turned off by and not like at all, but they're also good for decorating. Now, what we've got today is I've already got some dough in the fridge that I made yesterday, and I've also got some of these little guys baked. So I'll just show you. So we've got something to decorate. So these I baked yesterday. Here he is. This one's got a little bit of a catch, but these are the dudes. So they're quite big, as you can see. They're, you know, you can make them smaller if you want. This recipe is going to make about 10 to 12 of them. We'll talk through all of that. Loving the background lights, Amita says. This is our little Halloween, and we've got a little spider, not a real one, up in the top corner. I'm a cute Halloween person. I'm not a scary Halloween person. But yes, so these are the dudes that we're going to be making. We're going to be using this cutter here, if I can show you a bit closer. Here's a ginger, I think they call them gingerbread men. You might find them as skeleton cutters. If I turn it slightly, you can see he's got some embossing on one side, and on the other side is the cutter. I will pop a link to these on Amazon. I have been reliably informed by Pat, who's in Canada, that you can get them in various hobby stores over there, and also in the States, in places like Trader Joe's and all sorts of things like that. In the UK, you can get them, or you used to be able to get them in Lakeland. But you can now, if you can't get out to Lakeland, you don't want to go into stores and things, you can get them on that website that begins with an A, Amazon, or the E one, eBay. But you can get these, and these are what we're going to do. If you just want to make gingerbread men and you don't want the skeleton, or you can't get these but you've got a gingerbread men cutter, you can use that as well. When we get to icing them, I'll show you more about those. But let's get down to the ingredients and tell you a little bit more. So our little touch thing is working again today. This is great. I'm going to move it so I don't have to keep moving over to you guys over there. Actually, I can see what I'm doing there. Oops. Recipe. No ingredients. Okay, right. For our ingredients, it's a very simple recipe. Again, it's we're going to be using plain flour. I'm doing a half batch because I've already made a batch, but the ingredients list here and that's on the blog will give you 10 to 12 gingerbread men. So we've got plain flour, or you can use all-purpose flour. So we want plain. We don't want self-raising or anything on a raising agent because it's going to pop up and it's going to make our gingerbread men a bit cakey. So we want some plain flour. We're also going to be using some baking soda, not a self-raising, not baking powder, but baking soda or bicarbonate soda. This is just to give it a little rise. So we only want a little bit of that. Then on our spices that we're going to be adding in, we're going to be using ground spices. So ground ginger. You can get these most in the spice aisles as well, or you can get gingerbread spice mixes. We use these a lot for cooking anyway, so we have them in the cupboard. But ground ginger, ground cinnamon in there's enough, and ground nutmeg. If you haven't got those, but you've got something like a mixed spice, you can use this as well. This is more for Christmas. Really, because it's got things like clove in it as well and some coriander, but you could use this if you wanted to and add a touch more ginger, but I'd stick personally to the individual spices. We're going to be using quite a lot of ginger. We're going to be using 1 tablespoon. That sounds quite a lot, and it is, but it's to give that really nice warming spicy mix that when it's mixed with the cinnamon and the nutmeg just gives you that really the sweetness from the cinnamon with the contrast with the other two. It's just going to make it really nice and nice and warm. We're not going for a horrible, sharp, burning gingerbread, just that nice warm one, especially when you've got a cup of tea. You will also need 100 grams of butter. Mind the lights there. So we've got 100 grams of cold cubed butter. It needs to be cold, so this has been in the fridge because we're going to be doing this using a rub-in method with our hands, and we don't want it to be too hot. If it's too hot and warm and room temperature, when you combine, you get a really sticky, wet dough, and that when it bakes, it will spread too easily. We want them to stay nice and formed as you saw with the others. We're also going to be using a light, soft brown sugar. Brown sugar is best because, again, it's going to add to that gingerbread, that caramelly taste and texture. So I've got a light, soft brown sugar. You could use a light muscovado. If you wanted a really darker, treacle sort of tasting gingerbread, you could use a dark brown or a dark muscovado, but stay away from the refined white sugar. Because that's we want the soft sugar to help bring all the dough together and not crystallized in it. You're also going to need 1 egg. Just 1 egg. This little dude's been at room temperature. He can be at room temperature. So he's there, 1 medium egg. And also, we're going to be using golden syrup. If you can't get golden syrup where you are, I know in some places like the States, it's not as easy to get. You can use a light corn syrup, but this you're not going to get so much of the sweetness through. It'll still work all the same, but the thing with our golden syrup here is this is basically sugar. This is basically sugar, and this, if you can get it, is the best really to use. Again, it's going to add to it gives us a wet element, helps us combine all our ingredients together. And for decoration, we're just going to be using a white flood out icing. So at the moment, it's just sat in a bag in a bowl, but we're going to be needing some icing sugar or powdered sugar. And if you're not doing the skeleton, whatever you want to chuck on it, you could use Smarties or chocolate pieces or chocolate drops or jelly tops. You could make these whatever you want, like the gingerbread man in Trek, really. But this is where we're going with these guys. So let's get started. I'm going to take my watch off because we're going to be getting our hands in. I'll leave the instructions and the ingredients up. Again, like I did last week, everybody seems to quite like having those there as I'm going through. So if you've got any questions as we go through, pop them in. I will see them come up on the side of the laptop, which is just down there if I keep looking down there. Excuse me, and I'll answer as we go along. There is quite a few questions already up on the website, and some facts, some frequently asked questions, but anything that we get in, I will be adding to and updating the post as well. So, sort of equipment-wise, you're just really going to need a large mixing bowl, a rolling pin. I've got a big one that I use for sugar paste, but you can just use a normal one. You're also going to need your skeleton or your cookie cutter, and you're going to need some baking sheets, which I have here, and either baking parchment or these are the silicone baking sheets that you can get. I highly recommend these if you're doing a lot of baking. They're great, and you're not going through reams and reams of paper. They go in the dishwasher, and they're great. So these are, I think they call them non-stick baking mats. I call them Silpacks. That's what they used to be called many years ago. But they're great. So we've got a couple of baking sheets and some baking liners. For the decoration, also, I've got a piping bag and a nozzle if you want to. But let's get on. So we're going to start with one very large mixing bowl. in here, you can add in just all your flour. This is, like I say, this is a half recipe, so I'm using half the ingredients on the list because I've already got half a batch in the fridge. So that's your flour. Just keep your sugar to one side for the moment. You're also then going to want your spices. And you'll want to use, you want a teaspoon, sorry, of each of cinnamon and nutmeg. So I'm just going for half of one on here. By all means, if you like your gingerbread more warming, more spicy, you can add a little bit more in. Just be careful you don't overdo it because the nutmeg doesn't want to come out there. It will then be too sharp. And then we'd normally be using a tablespoon, which is quite a big one, of our ginger, but I'm only going to be using half of that. You should have got the half. Measure out a little bit more. This doesn't want to come out today. There it is. Keep that for later. So we've got in here our flour, our gingerbread, our ground ginger, ground cinnamon, and ground nutmeg. We're also going to need our teaspoon of baking powder. So I'm going to use half of one. And then into this, you can just give it a quick stir through, mix it all together. You can do this with a like a food processor, like a Magic Mix with the knife attachment. It will cut and make the dough. But if you're doing it with little ones, this is a great way of just getting them involved because they're going to get their hands in it. So, and it's fun. So into here now, I've got my cubed cold butter. I'm using just 50 grams here, but if you're doing the full recipe, you'll want 100. And this is where it starts. So we can, if you ask me any questions now, I'm not going to hit the button until I've got clean hands again, but make sure your hands are clean. Any rings or anything take off, and we're just going to rub in. So we're just sort of helping that flour and the butter and those spices mix together. So just gently, the butter's hard, which is right. The heat from your hands is going to help to melt it through, and it will start forming clumps with the dry ingredients, but just keep rubbing it. So once we've started to work the butter in, we'll be able to rub it a little bit more finer, but it's good fun. You can, I know some people don't like doing this. There's a chap that I watch on YouTube, Barry Lewis, who's nuts. He's got a great channel if you're new to cooking or things. He's quite infectious in terms of his personality. He hates this bit. So he uses a pastry cutter, and you might have seen them. They look like a big sort of C loop with a handle between it, and they've got like little blades in there. Well, not blades, they look like a fan, and you can use that and you push that down into the butter, and it cuts. It's like a pastry cutter. It'll cut through and help combine everything. So with this, my butter has started to soften up. So now what I'm doing, I won't come closer because we'll go out of focus, is I'm just sort of rubbing that butter between my fingers like this. Bringing it all together. We're not looking for big clumps. We're looking for like a really nice, fine, sandy texture. So when you've been on the beach and you've got the sand in your toes and you wiggle your feet in, it's not wet and clumpy. It's that nice, fine, sandy texture. That's the easiest way I can describe it. Like sand through your toes or sand through your fingers. And it will just, I'm not grabbing it and squeezing it. I'm literally just feeding it through with my fingers here. Just nice and gently until it's sand between your toes. It takes a few minutes, as you can see, but it's worth it because it just gives you that nice dough. There we go. And then once we've got to a, let me see if I can just get rid of the excess. Once we've got to this sort of sandy texture, we're going to add in our sugar. And you keep the bowl. And we're just going to do the same. So mix it through with your hands. Just get it mixed in. And then incorporate that sugar to the butter and flour, just doing the same again. How simple is that? This is why the kids love it. They get their hands in. And baking is as much as measuring and all sorts as actually getting involved for me. It's one of the things that I remember most from being little is actually getting stuck in and getting my hands stuck in. So get rid of the excess off your hands. Just going to quickly dip my hands and wash them off so you can, and then I'll show you what we've got. There we go. So what we've got is this fine, oops, keep forgetting where the camera is, this fine sandy texture. Let's just see if I can, oh, I'm just seeing if I could get in a little closer for you, but I think that might have gone out of focus now. Okay, so we've got a nice fine sandy texture here. Our next thing we want to do is add our wet ingredients. Let's just get rid of the crumbs. Now, for our wet ingredients, we're going to be using our egg and our golden syrup. Now, I'll tell you about my golden syrup in a moment. So just crack your egg. We're just going to use a bowl. We're going to whisk these up together first. So in a small bowl, crack your egg. Make sure you've got no eggshell in there. And then we're going to add 2 tablespoons of, for me, so you're going to add 4 tablespoons of golden syrup. Now I've used 1 medium egg, normally, so what I've done for this recipe, I've just made this a small egg, because I can't split an egg in half. But I'm going to now use 2 tablespoons of golden syrup. If you've not seen golden syrup, it looks a bit like this. It's normally a bit more amber. What's happened is I've had to heat my golden syrup this morning on the hob to get it to this consistency. If you use golden syrup, you have it a lot, you'll notice that if you put it in the back of the cupboard and leave it, it will crystallize over at times. When you open it out, it looks like you've got lots of sugar crystals in. It's still perfectly fine. This stuff is basically pure sugar. So all you need to do is just recrystallize it. So just heat it on the hob until it's bubbling, and it will reform back as its golden syrup style. I can't if I can get the lid off, I can show you what I mean. No, there's not a lot left. So you can, don't panic, you can reform your golden syrup. So into here, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of this stuff. Oh, it's so good. I can just eat it. I mean, if anybody's got a sweet tooth. But it's very sticky and very messy, and it's not the easiest to get out. Oh. So I'm just gonna give it a helping hand there. Let's just get rid of this because it's very sticky. And in here then we've got our egg and our golden syrup. Just whisk it all together. The golden syrup will not want to whisk to start with because you've added it to the egg and it will feel like it's seizing, but it's not. Don't worry. I did think about doing this before I got on camera because it can be an utter nightmare. But we're looking for I'm just trying to find a way to put it. There we go. So give it a good whisk together, the golden syrup and the egg. And this is our wet ingredient. That we're going to add in. So if you're doing this with smalls or adults, you know, somebody could be whisking this while somebody's doing the dough. Oh, it's nearly there. Like I say, if you can't get golden syrup where you are, you can use and you can get things like light corn syrup or corn syrup. You want the light version for this. You don't want the dark, it's too rich. You can use that. I haven't tried this with maple syrup or anything like that. I don't think maple is thick enough and will add too much of a taste as well. So nearly there. So it's like a sugary egg mix we've got going on here. There we are. Just give the egg a little bit of a beat together. Okay. So when this is all beat together, you'll end up with like quite a dark, foamy mixture, as you can see here. That's the egg that I had. We had brown eggs, so they were quite an orange yolk this week. So yours might be a little bit paler, but it's also the golden syrup in there as well. Let's just move that. So with a spatula then, just make a well in the center of your dough. Crumbs, it's not dough just yet. And we're just going to literally pour this into the middle. And get rid of that because it's very sticky. And then you can start off with a spatula, just bringing it all together. Bring it round. So just pull the dry ingredients on top of the wet and start just bringing it all together. If you find, like I did yesterday, that your dough is just a little bit too dry, it's not coming together as much, just add a tiny bit of water, not even half a teaspoon, just a drop or two of water, cold water, and it'll help bring everything together. As you can see, this is coming together quite nicely. Now I need to bring it into the dough. So once again, hands in the mixture, but before I do that, I'm going to get some cling film. So we're going to wrap this in cling film or plastic wrap and pop it in the fridge to chill for 30 minutes. This is a chill dough. It helps our gingerbread men keep their shape. So I'm just going to get ready to pull all this together, shape it, and then pop it straight on the cling film. So I only have to wash my hands once again, not several times. So going in with the hands, you'll be able to feel as well if your dough is too dry or too sticky. It should be sort of damp, I guess, but with a few crumbs just sitting in the base of the bowl. So give that a good knead together. And get all the bits and pieces out. And you should end up with a dough that's sort of taking, you haven't got a lot left on the outside. It smells amazing. It smells like gingerbread. So, like I say, you can use this for Christmas as well as Halloween, or even Easter biscuits if you wanted to. So when we've got our dough, I'm just going to shape it into a ball and then pat it out to about no more than an inch thick at the most, because you want it to chill. So, and then I'm just going to place that on my cling film, get rid of that, and then just wrap it up. So over, make sure it's airtight. I'm just going to wash my hands again. And we have our dough. Now this is now going to go in the fridge. If you're making these all on the same day, they go in the fridge, it goes in the fridge. You want at least 30-minute chill on that before you start rolling it out. If you roll it out now, the dough is so soft that when you bake it, it's just going to spread. It's going to stick to your cutter. It's going to stick to your hands. It's just going to stick to everything. And it's not going to be easy to roll out. So you want to pop this in the fridge for about 30 minutes. If you're making in advance and you don't want to use all the dough, you can split this out and you can freeze it. So what I would do if I was freezing it is I'd probably double wrap this, if not more, double wrap it with the cling film and then put a piece of foil around it. But it can just go in the freezer up for about 3 months. So if you were making this now and you didn't want to use all of it, you can pop it in the freezer and you've got gingerbread left for Christmas, which will be what is happening to this one later. But for the moment, I'm just going to pop it in the fridge. Oh. Oops. And take out, my pumpkins are in the wrong place. Take out the dough that I made yesterday. So yesterday I made a double batch, not a double batch, I made this full recipe that you've got here. I split it, so I made just a couple of gingerbread guys that we're going to be decorating, and then put the rest in the fridge today, and I'm going to roll this out now. Now, it feels quite solid. That's not a bad thing. It's going to be easier to work with and roll out and do all our things with our gingerbread guys. But just want to let that a little bit come up to room temperature. Let's get rid of that. all sorts in these kitchen drawers. And we'll talk about the oven. So obviously, if you are baking these at home and you're not going to be baking them for a while, or you're going to freeze them, you don't need to preheat the oven. If you are baking them on the same day and whilst they're in the fridge, don't preheat the oven until you're about ready to take it out of the fridge and start sort of rolling and cutting out. It just is a waste of electricity. So I'm going to move my guys a little bit. Let's pull them over a little bit more so they're not in. For our oven then, we're going to want it at 180, no more than that, which is 350 Fahrenheit. So 180 degrees C, 350, and these guys only take about 8 to 10 minutes to bake. If you bake them for 8 minutes, you'll be like, oh, they don't look quite right, but if you go over with them, then they will catch on the sides and they will become a bit more of a ginger biscuit rather than a nice gingerbread cookie. So then, let's get ready to roll out. So on the side, if you haven't already, get your baking sheets prepared. So I'm using big flat baking sheets. You can pick those up in most places. You can get them online, but they're just nice and flat, just with a little lip to pull them out, rather than one like a Swiss roll tin that's got the edges lifted up. You can do it in that if you want to, just get more on here. And then we've got our silicone baking mats as well. They are great. I mean, they last forever. These are well used, as you can see. But we're going to need at least 2 trays. And you can do it in batches. If you don't have enough, you can do 1 tray and then bring it out and then get the next batch ready. So for our dough then, we're going to start rolling this out. I'm only going to take half of this today. So I'm just going to, let's do that there. Again, because I'm going to make these again in a couple of weeks for Halloween, so I can pop all of this in the freezer. So I'm just going to soften this a little bit with my hands, but not too much. The thing that you don't want to do is we don't want to overwork our dough. If we overwork our dough now, it's going to get tough and just be quite a dense cookie. We're still looking for a nice, smooth taste, biscuity texture. So, I mean, we did Biscuit Week on Bake Off this week, and they did Florentines. Did they do gingerbread? They did the tea set, didn't they, at the end? If anybody's watched it, they made like an afternoon tea set. And I think quite a few people might have used the gingerbread style recipe. I can't remember too much. I need to rewatch it. So when you're rolling out, I'm going to be using a little pinch of flour. This is just plain flour again. But you don't want to add too much. We don't want to be adding, you see people on the adding, you see that on the recipe and they're adding more and more flour. Yes, you want flour, but you don't want to be adding extra to it. So you want enough to be able to roll out with. And our rolling pin. So when we've got our surface prepped, we're going to just roll gently on this. You might see the edges crack, but don't worry. Just going to start it off and just keep turning it. Now, if you're a cake decorator, you know that when you're rolling fondant, we don't turn over our sugar paste, because we don't. When we're using icing sugar, we don't want it to discolour the colour of our sugar paste. So I am in the habit of doing that. So you will see me not flipping over my gingerbread dough. But we'll just roll it, quarter of a turn, roll, quarter of a turn. If you start to find it cracks at the side, you can just pick it up and push them together. There we go. And we're looking for about a 3 to 5 millimeter thickness. If you're in the UK, that's about the gauge I go is a £1 coin, is the thickness that you want. So don't be tempted to have to roll it all into one big sheet. We can roll it, cut some out, rework the dough a little bit, roll it again and cut it out. Don't worry about getting it wide enough to get all your gingerbread men out of, because you probably won't get it out on your work surface anyway. I'm just going to pull this up here a little bit. So, time for this guy. I'm just going to rub the edges with some flour. Now, with this guy, and if you're using the gingerbread guy, you notice that it's solid on one side because it's got the embossing, whereas most gingerbread cutters, you can just put it in and then push it out onto your baking tray. So you may need you can use a cocktail stick or a skewer. This is something like a scribe for a cake decorating, but it's just like a little point. That's all we're going to need because we might need to coax him out. So we're going to pop him on your dough and press down evenly all the way around. He didn't pop out today. And if you need to, just use a flat spatula this time. I'm always saying about my offset spatula, but these are great for lifting. And then we're just going to lift him and pop him on our baking tray. See how many I can get out of here. Maybe just 2 on this go. Push him in. Aha! See, now this time he didn't come out. And he's not going to. So if you get this, just get your little, it literally is just like a little point. And I tend to go in at the head and pull him out like that. And then he pops straight out. When you're popping them onto your baking tray, you want to make sure that they're about 2 inches apart because the cookie dough will slightly spread. So we don't want them to be overlapping or joining hands. Maybe they can join hands if they want to, whilst they're putting in. So what you would keep doing is just bringing your dough together, not overworking it like I said. Another little pinch of flour. And roll out again. I'm just going to pop him to there. You'll feel that your dough starts to get easier to roll. It's obviously the heat from your hands when you're using it, and also just the general act of rolling this out. So if it starts to get sticky, just a little bit more flour. I'm going to pop this guy in here. That time he worked. And I've just got him 3 of them upside down on there. We'll just roll this out again because I can probably get another one onto here. Plenty of flour on the work surface still. Like I said, when I'm rolling, it's just gentle. We're not pushing down. We're not forcing it. It's just gentle rolling, and that's with anything with pastry or sugar paste or cookie dough, just gently rolling. And if you can just roll in one direction, just keep it moving forward in one direction, not Harry Styles. So let's get one more. That didn't cut out fully, so just in the head, pop back on. He's going to be a little bit. This is the beauty of a flat spatula as well, is you can get right under there if you need to. So I'm just going to pop him. I'm going to take the dude from the middle of this one onto there as well. I've got a little bit of dough left. It's probably not enough for a gingerbread guy today, so what you can do is just make that. You could make smaller ones, you could do anything, or that can go with the stuff that we've got and popped in the freezer. So I'm just going to put that to one side. So then, our how do we get our skeletons? Now, these guys, as you've seen, let's just have a quick recap. As you've seen, these guys have got like a little icing skeleton on them. Now, if you are really good, you could do this freehand. My icing skills are a lot to be desired. So that's where this cutter comes in handy. It's got, if I can get it up here, and get the right angle, you can see it's got a little embossed ridges all over it. And these are what we're going to be using. So again, just a little flour on there, and we're going to literally lay our embossed directly over our gingerbread men and evenly push down all the way around. The thing that I tend to find is I don't push enough on the top part on his head. But don't push too far, because if you push too far, it will cut through the gingerbread and you'll get holes. So, don't know if the camera will pick that up, but this guy has got a little skeleton embossed on him. So do that for all of them. If you don't want to do this, you can just bake them as they are now. If you find that once you peel this off, it's not quite embossed enough, if that's a word or phrase, don't worry, because what you can do is don't go back in. So for this guy here, his head, I don't think it's going to pick it up very well, but his feet are really embossed, but his head is really, isn't very deep. So it's going to bake out, which means that when it bakes, we'll lose that look and feel. So we're just going to quickly get these guys through. That one came off a bit better. But when they're baking, when you check on it and when you take them out, if they haven't, because the cookie dough is still a little bit soft, you can just push this down onto your baked cookies as long as they're straight, fresh out of the oven. So we've got our little guys here with their little skeletons on. These are now going in a preheated oven at 180 for 8 minutes. We put that on for 8. I'm just going to quickly wash my hands and we'll just wipe down, and then I'll show you how to decorate them. There we go. I love it, Mrs. M, so cool. They are, aren't they? They're just really, really cool and simple. They look really cool. Like I say, but you don't have to use this as, you don't have to do the skeleton. You can do just normal gingerbread, or you could do a Christmas skeleton or whatever, or you can just use the dough for any anything. So Christmas for the reindeers, which I will show you at some point how to do them, but I'm just going to let this dry a little bit. I just want to show you that, I think this is the one. Just gonna, oops, that's the one we want. You will find all the information, all the recipe here. Our little guys, this is what they look like fully, but you'll find there's another video of me doing them. If you hit that, you'll watch the video. But there's lots of ideas. There's links to the cutters and how to make them, what we're looking for in the perfect gingerbread, how to decorate them, and also handy hints. So I talk about chilling the dough, adding a sprinkle of water if we need to, don't overworking it, and also the freezing it, and my recommended equipment. And these guys, you'll find the full recipe is here on the blog with the with another video as well. So you can find all that over here, just at crumbsandcorkscrews.com. So what we're going to do now is, whilst these are baking, I'm just going to show you then how we decorate them. So, like I say, yesterday I made some guys. We've got 3 of these. And these are stored just in a biscuit tin, and a metal biscuit tin. Like I said in the blog, moisture is the bane of a gingerbread man's life. You do not want to get him wet. If you've watched Shrek 2, I think it is, where the gingerbread man sort of becomes giant and helps them win the battle, he gets drenched in milk and he goes all soft and yucky. Oh, so soft gingerbread is not what you want. So store them in a metal tin and a biscuit tin until you're ready to eat them or whatever. But they make great little trick or treats. So these guys here, as you can see, he's really quite well embossed, whereas he's not too bad. This guy is he's a bit faceless. He's got a little bit of a body here. You see, he is one of the ones that I should have, when I took him out the oven, I should have pressed the embosser back in just to give him a little bit extra. But this is where I mean by baked out. If I run my fingers over it, I know the pattern and the texture is there, but it's baked out. So we've only really just got his rib cage. Whereas these guys, I caught him a little bit too much. I went over on these last night. I went, oh, I thought I'll do 10 minutes, but actually you want to be going 8. 8 is my go-to. So yeah. So this here, he's got a nice embossed on him, and so is this little dude as well. So we're gonna decorate these. Now you don't have to do this with icing, sugar, and water like we're going to be doing, making run-out icing. You can buy icing in tubes now in the supermarkets. I'm sure you can buy it in the tubes in most places. In the UK, definitely in the baking aisle, you get lots of. You can get like a pack of 5. So if the kids are doing it and they just want to do lots of different colours, you can buy a pack. I think they're a couple of quid, £2 or something. You're probably going to get enough to do what you need to do for these. But If you want to do it, and just like we're going to do, we're going to be making run out icing just with our icing sugar and some cold water, which I need to get. And a spoon. 2 spoons. Not one that's had water syrup on it. So I'm using a recyclable pastry bag. You can make your own, like with baking parchment, or you can use the fabric bags. But we only want a little one, and then we're going to be using a piping nozzle. These are sometimes called, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, a writing nozzle, but unlike the cupcake nozzles, which are quite about 1 centimetre wide, this is millimetres, and this is I'm trying to see what it is. It's a number 2, and this is the sort of thing that you'd be using to do writing on cakes and things like that. If you don't have the tubes, you don't have a nozzle, you don't have the bags, what you can do is get a freeze bag, a Ziploc bag, pop it in and just cut a tiny corner. So if you imagine this is the bag, the tiny, tiny little bit of this corner off as well, and you can then just squeeze it, and that will also act as your piping bag. But for today, I'm going to be using this, so I'm just going to hopefully get that in the right place. And drop our nozzle in there. If you are doing it like this, when you pop your nozzle into the bag, you don't want this cut to sit too far near the top of here, because when you squeeze, you're going to risk the nozzle popping straight out, and you don't want this sort of too far up like that, because you'll get the icing coming out the side. So you want it about 1/3 to half of the way up your bag. I don't know if you can see these guys. They've got 5 seconds left, but they're going to be coming out in now. So let's just I think he's going to go back in just for another minute. They are looking a little on the pale side. So I'm just going to pop them back in. This is where I overdo it. You have to trust your judgment and things. So we'll just get our icing ready. For getting your icing into the bag, whether you're using a Ziploc bag or a pastry bag or an icing bag, I just pop mine in a glass and then pull the edges over. It means then I've got plenty of room, and that is perfect for when you're doing buttercream as well. So in another bowl, this is where it gets messy. We're going to be using icing sugar. We're going to be making up some water icing or runny icing, and I'm going to start off with getting this everywhere. 3 heaped spoonfuls, there we go, of icing sugar. Now I'm not going to get rid of it just yet because I might still need it. And the key to doing this is we want a runny texture, runny consistency, but it's not too thick. Here she is. Sorry I'm late, it's Gina. Hi Gina, good morning. How are you? We are just decorating some gingerbread men, and there's some just about to pop out the oven now. That's better. So they just needed a 1.5 minutes extra on them. So we can turn these off. They're going to be too warm to ice. I'm just trying to find one. As these cool, they'll get but this is the sort of colour that you're looking for. And I'm not going to touch them because they are very hot, and they've also embossed there as well. And they do puff up just ever so slightly. I don't want them to cool too long on the baking tray, so a wire rack, and we'll lift those off shortly. But just leave them to cool for a moment. You want to leave them for about 10-15 minutes if you are icing them at least. Go make a cup of tea and then come back to them. Wash up, tidy up, clean your hands. So with our icing then, we want a runny consistency, but not too runny. It still needs to be a little bit thick. So what we use is just cold water and add in, I'm just doing this with regular teaspoons, I'm not measuring it. You'll find there's all sorts of recipes out there for getting the right consistency and all sorts, but do you know what? Icing sugar is quite a fickle ingredient. It's the best thing, and the thing I've always done is go by eye and texture. Now, when I had the shop and we were teaching cupcake courses, we would be teaching one with run-out icing as well. As you can see, this is too thick. It's quite solid. But what I do want to do now is just add a tiny bit of water. Now, I don't want to add a lot, so I'm only just going to add 2 drops. And we're going to start there, bringing it together. And you can feel it and see it that actually that icing is not as solid as it was before, and that was just with 2 drops of water. So I'm just going to add another 2. And keep going, and it'll start getting, if I go now and add too much, I'm going to have to counteract it with icing sugar. Now, that in some ways is fine because, you know, it's one of them things. You're not going to get too you can only add a little bit. It's just, you can get the texture. Now, this is almost there. What I used to call this in the shop, and I shouldn't say things, this is the plop test, basically. When I pick it up on a spoon, does it plop off? And then do we get a stream, a nice, thick, white stream of icing? If the answer is yes, then you are pretty much good to go. So drop, and it still runs off. If it's translucent, if it looks really watery, you want to be adding some more icing sugar. But just like we added the water a drop at a time, add the icing sugar just a touch at a time as well. If I was being picky, I'd probably say that I could add a drop of extra water in there. The thing is, I'm going to take it too far. It's going to be too runny. So this, for the moment, is what I'd say is about right. Now, I've just made a small batch with this. You can make a bigger batch. The thing is, with this, is because you're working with it, and it's such a fickle character, you add too much water, you add too much icing sugar. Working with it in smaller quantities is better if you can. So for here now, I'm just going to get that all in there. And I can make some more up in the same bowl if I want to. So this is where it all goes horribly wrong for me. We've got our icing in our bag. Just gently push it down. And what you can do if you want to is you can pop like a clip it on the end. You get quite, if you don't want it, so you don't want to squeeze, because you're working with a small quantity. What you can do is you can use a clip. I tend to with clip it, or you can wrap it round, and we're going to rest it between our thumb and our finger, a bit like we did when we're icing the cupcakes. So our pressure point for decorating and squeezing our icing, is here in the palm of our hands at the top of the icing. It's not halfway down, it's not near the tip. If we start squeezing here, all our icing at this side is just going to go back up here. And if we squeeze too close to the end, it's just not going to happen at all. So I don't know if I can see, my icing has started to just dribble out, which to me means it's the right consistency. So with our dude here, now if you watch the video on the blog, there is a close-up of it, but I'm just going to start by, I am not the world's best royal icer, I admit. I'm just going to start with the outline and round his eyes and his nose and another eye, and then I'm just going to fill in the gaps. Now you don't have to get it fully filled in, because what we're going to do is we're going to use that little spiky thing that we used earlier, where you can use a cocktail stick to help flood it out. So, where has it gone? So here, oops, I'm not going to tip him, but when I filled him in, I've got some gaps here, and the easiest way is just to coax the icing over. You might need a little bit more, but you don't want to flood it too much. And you can do this with a piping, with a, what's one of them things, a cocktail stick. I just haven't got quite enough on there, and it just fills it in, and it means you can get rid of any air bubbles. So if you're doing this, kids, they just go around it with a thing. But if you want to do it, so you've got a nice skeleton guy there, that's how we're going to do it. So I'm just going to, let's keep going. Let's get one of these dudes iced. I'm going to go down his rib cage. There's his arm. It's just like, I don't want to say join the dots, because there's no dots, but it's like, if anybody's ever done one of those mindfulness colouring books that they were very popular a couple of years ago, it's a bit therapeutic like that. Just coming down his rib cage. That's it, I've been squeezing in the wrong part. My icing's going up. And then, what's this? Oh, this must be his pelvis. You can see why I didn't become a doctor. Anatomy is probably not my strongest point. And then his little leg bones. I think I should be singing that song, but I won't. Subject you to that. And his little toes. Ta-da! chap. For some of them, they look a bit weird. But this is just simple iced in those. And you can see then how getting that emboss in the gingerbread when you bake it makes sort of all the difference, because it gives you somewhere to flood the icing. So if you're like me and you're not an icing person, it's really helpful, but it gives you something that looks really, really, really cool. If you do end up with a guy like this and you haven't got enough of emboss, you can freehand it if you want to, if you're brave, or you can just eat him. But this is what he looks like when he's iced. They're so cute. I love them. These guys have been on the blog with me for 8 years, I think. They're one of my popular ones, so I have a little bit of a soft spot for them. You could use different coloured icing. You could go a bit more fancy. You could do all sorts. I mean, I guess you've got things like I'm not going to say it in Spanish or Mexican because I will say it wrong, but you've got the Day of the Dead, the Hilo de Muertos. So you, shut up. But you could do some really cool, pretty, coloured and decorated them up with all the flamboyant stars and everything that goes around with them. But these guys as well, you can pop them in little bags or little treat bags, and they're great for trick-or-treaters. I think they're ace, but like I say, I've been making them for years and I love them. Let's just pull the, that's still a bit too soft, so be careful when you lift them off. And to the thing. And these are our guys that we've baked this morning as well. They are super cute, aren't they, Gina? They are. They're so super cute. I love them. I absolutely love them. And they taste great too. So, yeah, another fine mess I've got myself into this morning. Now I'm just going to quickly recap. So these guys are our Halloween gingerbread men. The recipe is already on the blog, so there's no excuse. You can get over it and make them. The recipe freezes. You can freeze this gingerbread. It's great. So if you want to make a full batch, you can make a couple of these guys for Halloween. And you've got gingerbread left over for Christmas, and we're going to be making gingerbread reindeer at some point using the same dough. We're going to actually be making a Christmas cookie box. So we won't be remaking the dough in the kitchen line, but we'll be doing other instead. But we will be using our gingerbread dough. And they're just really good fun. So you can do it really simply. You can do it and make them that look like this little guy here as well. But everything is already over, she says, down here on the blog. Look at it. This is the bit you can't see when I've got the ingredients up, the bit that's a mess. But yes, so, and then you've got all your ingredients and your recipe as well on the blog. So give them a go. Oh, there we go. I'm going to love you guys and leave you. Thank you very much for joining me. Gina, welcome again. Mrs. M, thank you for joining us as well. Amita, wherever you are, and everybody else that I've seen dropped in but have been sort of quiet in the background there. Thank you for joining us on a very wet and windy day in the Cotswolds, at least. I think Mrs. M said it was lovely and sunny in Buckinghamshire. If you can send some this way, it would be greatly appreciated. Wherever you are in the world, if you are on lockdown, or if you're not on lockdown, or if you're just, wherever you are, just look after yourselves, look after everybody that's around you, take care. And next week we will be back. We are going to be making sorry, I'm reading some comments from Gina. Rewatch from the start, Lou. Thank you. Go back, rewatch from the start. It's great. We've got all the bits and pieces on there. Next week, we are going to be making, I don't know if it's going to be a toffee apple tart yet, or if it's going to be a toffee apple pie, or a toffee apple loaf cake. I haven't decided. We need to do something with some recipe testing, but we're going for toffee apple because it seems right. And then we're going to be getting into some more Halloween stuff as well. So the pumpkins and I will be back next week, next Sunday at 10 a.m. here on Facebook, YouTube, and in the Facebook group. And until then, I hope you have a lovely rest of your Sunday and look after yourselves and everyone around you. Take care. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.